Bill Belichick's girlfriend, Jordon Hudson, is calling out NBC Sports and others for their lack of coverage on the Mike Vrabel and Dianna Russini scandal. And on the one hand, she has a point. Last offseason, Pablo Torre and NBC-affiliated Pro Football Talk took deep dives into Hudson's relationship with Bill Belichick. There were reports that Hudson wasn't allowed at UNC football facilities. There were reports that she helped tank HBO's Hard Knocks deal by wanting too much control. And then, after the infamous CBS Sunday Morning interview with Belichick, where Hudson objected off camera to a question about how she and Belichick met, PFT continued covering the fallout. Namely, when Belichick appeared on the Pivot podcast, which felt heavily scripted and edited in a way that looked like damage control. So Hudson's right about one thing. There was a lot more mainstream sports media coverage of her and Belichick than there has been of Mike Vrabel and Dianna Russini. But I think her argument misses two important points. Number one, there were simply more developments in the Hudson and Belichick story. Belichick was on a press tour promoting a heavily criticized book. He was entering his first season as a college football coach. There was the CBS interview. There was the Hard Knock situation. There was the Pivot appearance. There were more public statements, more public appearances, more things for reporters to break down. With Vrabel and Russini, it's kind of been the opposite. After the first photos dropped of them together in Sedona, Arizona, they basically both went into hiding. Outside of one resignation letter from Russini and 3 very controlled press conferences from Vrabel, there just hasn't been as much for PFT to report on. Number 2, and this is the big one, Pro Football Talk probably isn't the right outlet for Hudson to take aim at. PFT, which is half owned by NBC and half owned by Mike Florio, has been one of the only mainstream sports outlets consistently covering the Vrabel and Russini scandal. If Hudson wants to call out ESPN, Fox Sports, or even other NBC Sports programs, that might be fair, but PFT, wrong target.
Stay on target.
I'm Seattle Mike on the mic. Please subscribe and like. Roger Goodell and the NFL still have lingering questions to answer about the Dianna Russini and Mike Vrabel situation. And those questions could come as soon as Tuesday. That's the day NFL owners are meeting in Orlando to discuss rule proposals and other league business ahead of OTAs and minicamps. Normally, Goodell holds a press conference after these meetings, which means he should be available to the media on Tuesday. And if he is, there are real questions the league still needs to address after immediately shutting down the idea of investigating Mike Vrabel's relationship with Dianna Russini. To be clear, I'm not saying the NFL needs to investigate the affair itself. That part is not necessarily league business, but the possible football-related issues absolutely are. Why isn't the league looking into whether Vrabel and the Patriots used Russini to communicate interest in players who were not available, a la tampering? Why isn't the league looking into whether Russini pushed narratives that may have helped drive down trade costs for Vrabel's teams, whether that was the Titans or the Patriots? As Tony Farmer pointed out, why isn't the league looking into whether Vrabel's relationship with Russini affected her Coach of the Year vote? And if that vote had financial implications tied to coaching incentives, shouldn't the league at least want to know whether there was a conflict? If Vrabel knowingly benefited from that relationship, does that create a potential issue under the personal conduct policy? And here's a question I'm very curious about. Did the NFL pressure ESPN, its new equity partner, to avoid reporting on the Vrabel and Russini story? Even if the answer is no, and even if we accept that answer, it still raises serious questions about ESPN's silence, because Russini worked for ESPN while Vrabel was coaching the Titans. Look, these are questions Goodell should be prepared to answer, and if he's available to the media on Tuesday, I hope someone has the integrity to ask these questions, because they're not going away. I'm Seattle Mike on the mic. Please subscribe and like. The Steelers just overpaid Aaron Rodgers, and it says a lot about how they feel about their quarterback room. Per multiple reports, Aaron Rodgers will earn a base salary of $22 million for 2026 that can reach $25 million with incentives. And while $25 million is a great deal for a starting quarterback, if the Steelers felt like they had a better option currently on the roster, there was no reason to do this. After slapping Rodgers with the unrestricted free agent tender, the Steelers were only required to offer him $15 million for 2026. That tender gave Rodgers the option to sign with another team by July 22nd, but per ESPN, nobody else wanted 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers. So Why pay him $22 million? They didn't have a market to compete against. The Steelers already have 3 other quarterbacks on the roster, Mason Rudolph, Will Howard, and rookie Drew Aller. But signing Rodgers to a deal that can cost $10 million more than they needed to pay, paints a pretty clear picture. They don't think Will Howard or Drew Aller are ready to take over this team right now, which, a year away from a draft that's expected to have some compelling quarterbacks in it, might have been the exact reason to give the team to Howard or Aller this year. Worst case, they both play badly, the record is awful, and the Steelers are positioned to draft their franchise quarterback in 2027. Best case, one of them plays well enough to prove the franchise quarterback is already on the roster. Committing to Rodgers for another year feels like Pittsburgh is signing up for another 9-win season that doesn't go any further than the first round. I'm Seattle Mike on the mic. Please subscribe and like. A.J. Brown could already be affecting the Patriots offseason because wide receiver Kayshon Boutte still hasn't shown up to voluntary workouts. And look, I don't want to make this into something it's not, so let's be clear. At this point in the offseason, these workouts are voluntary. Plenty of veterans skip them. Plenty of players stick with their own offseason training plans. So under normal circumstances, Boutte missing voluntary workouts would not be a huge deal. But in this case, there are 2 reasons it's at least worth watching. 1, his contract. 2, his position. The contract part is simple. Boutte is entering the final year of his rookie deal, so it's possible he's angling for an extension or a raise before showing up for anything that isn't mandatory. And honestly, if I'm the Patriots, I'd respect the decision. Skipping voluntary workouts is within his rights as a player. I'd expect to see him at mandatory minicamp on June 15th. But here's where it gets interesting. His position. Because what exactly is Kayshon Boutte's role with the Patriots this season? The Patriots already signed Romeo Doubs to a massive 4-year, $68 million contract this offseason. They've also been heavily rumored as the landing spot for A.J. Brown once a trade becomes more realistic after June 1st. And if A.J. Brown really does come to New England, that doesn't leave a lot of room for Boutte to become a featured piece of this offense. That matters because Boutte is not just fighting for snaps, he's trying to put together the best season of his young career before hitting free agency in 2027. So I'd be curious to know if the Romeo Doubs signing and the possibility of an A.J. Brown trade are already affecting how Kayshon Boutte sees his future in New England. Because maybe this is just a player skipping voluntary workouts, or maybe Boutte can already see the Patriots receiver room is getting crowded. I'm Seattle Mike on the mic. Please subscribe and like. Deion Sanders is disappointed that the Jaguars didn't reach out to him about Travis Hunter. While appearing on the Barbershop podcast, Sanders said this.
Like even a guy like Travis Hunter being drafted to Jacksonville, and I've had him for the last 3. Don't you think you would want to talk to me to let me know, to ask me what gets him going and what backs him off and what, like, you would want to know that.
And on the one hand, I understand his point. If you're drafting Travis Hunter, it probably makes sense to speak with the coach who had him for the last 3 years. Even if the advice isn't useful, you can take the call, collect the information, and decide what matters later. It doesn't cost you anything. But on the other hand, I don't think NFL teams value Deion Sanders as a coach the way Coach Sanders probably thinks they should. Colorado is 16-21 under Sanders, and the Buffaloes went 3-9 after losing Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter to the NFL last year. And yeah, Deion Sanders is one of the greatest athletes of all time, but as a college coach, he still hasn't won anything. He hasn't proven he can win consistently, and he definitely hasn't proven he knows how NFL teams should develop players. So yes, I think the Jaguars probably should have called him, not because they owe him anything, but because Travis Hunter's a unique player, and Coach Sanders might have insight that could help. But the bigger takeaway is this: I just don't think Jacksonville cares what Coach Sanders has to say. And honestly, based on his coaching resume so far, I'm not sure the rest of the NFL does either. I'm Seattle Mike on the mic. Please subscribe and like.